Antennas. They're everywhere. Here, this thing, that thing, hidden in here, famously here, you get it. Antennas' use and purpose were summed up best by Teddy Roosevelt. Quote, "Speak softly and carry a big stick. You'll go far." And okay, yeah, he was talking about foreign policy, but in the case of gigantic antennas the size of cities, both interpretations actually do apply. See, all of these are normal antennas, sending out radio waves at about 3,000 to 300 billion hertz, depending on their purpose. If you have a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal, that's reaching your phone or laptop in radio waves with about 12.5 centimeters of wavelength, which is child's play. Because today we're talking about the big boy waves, the biggest boy waves, waves as wide as Australia, waves so massive they're called, ELF waves? In this context, ELF stands for extremely low frequency and not, as it does in Santa's workshop, exploited labor force. They're the lowest band in the radio spectrum, below even the cleverly named low frequency, very low frequency, and ultra low frequency waves. An ELF wave's frequency is between 3 and 300 hertz, meaning its wavelength could be anywhere from about 1,000 kilometers to nearly 10,000. This gives them some special traits, like traveling through the ionosphere instead of being bounced out into space, and passing obstacles like mountains, and traveling deep into the ground and seawater without getting wonky. And that last thing is kind of a big deal because higher frequency waves can only penetrate a few feet of water before their signal is unreadable. Even capital V very low frequency waves can only get down about 100 feet below before they get too wonked up. So if you're trying to communicate with anyone deeper than 100 feet below the surface, like your mermaid girlfriend, your mermaid girlfriend's overprotective father, or I don't know, a nuclear submarine, you need something with really low frequency. Extremely low even. ELFs. Because for many submarines, especially nuclear submarines, stealth is the point. Some of that is because people love to be sneaky little spies, a lot of it is for the purpose of nuclear deterrence, or the idea that one of the best ways to prevent nuclear war is to have enough of your nuclear arsenal be protected and or hidden that your enemy knows that they won't be able to wipe the whole thing out in their first strike, meaning if they torch you, you'll torch them, so they hopefully won't. It's not an ideal situation, but since some people won't seem to set down their floaty toys and talk about stuff like grown-ups, it's the best strategy for some time. Sneaky, stealthy submarines are at their sneakiest and stealthiest below the thermocline, or the layer of the ocean water between the stuff being warmed up by the sun and the cold, dark stuff underneath, which is at depths of about 200 to 1,000 meters or 660 to 3,000 feet. So if your sub's hanging out there, normal radio communications can't get to it, meaning to get information from the ground, it would have to come up near the surface and or deploy and tow an antenna, either of which could give up its location to your enemies. But with ELF signals, submarines can get the message even in the thermocline, which is why 4 countries, India, Russia, China, and the US, have built ELF systems to communicate with submarines. The US Navy did theirs during the Cold War, and it was made up of 2 giant antennas that could transmit to basically any submarine in the world. The process of getting this thing built was pretty fraught. What began as a plan for 6,000 miles of antenna with 240 transmitters covering 41% of Wisconsin's landmass became 2 sites, one near Clam Lake, Wisconsin, and one near Republic in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, each with tens of miles of antenna strung up on telephone wires instead of thousands. The Clam Lake site was finished first, and it sent its first ELF transmission in May 1985, which I'm sure you already know because of that song. How does it go? Springsteen, Madonna, way before Nirvana there was U2 and Blondie and ELF transmissions to the sea. Something like that. The UP site was completed 4 years later and was connected via underground cable to the Clam Lake site, meaning that they could basically function as one giant 148-mile or 240-kilometer antenna, and with that, the system was online. It sent ELF transmissions 24 hours a day so that submarines could always tell that their system was up and working, even if it wasn't trying to tell them anything. When it was trying to tell them something, it was not as helpful as you might expect. See, because their frequency is so low, ELF waves move information extremely slowly. After all, their wavelength is nearly 4,500 kilometers versus that 12.5 centimeters your Wi-Fi is rocking. ELF signals can't transmit audio, just character codes, and even those take about 15 minutes to send, assuming you were only hoping to send 3 characters, making them the perfect transmission method for a U-up text, but not much else. Kick on the fact that an ELF transmitting antenna has to be miles long, meaning you can't mount one on a submarine, and you get a very slow, text-exclusive, one-way communication method. In practice, all the ELF transmissions could really do was tell submarines, hey, you, go surface over there and get actual information from someone else. As times changed and technology improved and Soviet unions fell and Wisconsinites and Yoopers got annoyed with the giant wires emitting weird vibes in their forests, the US government took down the lines and gave up on ELF in the early aughts. The forest scars from the antennas are still there today, just mostly full of elk instead of wires. But if the US was declaring their ELF system obsolete in 2003, why did China put up a city-sized ELF antenna in 2018? Well, they claim it's to help detect earthquakes and maybe locate fossil fuels and metals underground that they could yank out, all of which are things ELF waves can actually do. But not for nothing, China has the world's largest submarine force and is being more secretive about the details and location of the antenna than you probably would be for a strictly civilian project, so many assume the real mission, or at least a side quest for these things, is submarine communication. But maybe they're just taking Teddy Roosevelt's words super close to heart. Speak softly, being coy about stuff and also using a text-based communication method is pretty softly, and carry a big stick. Stick-wise, you don't get much bigger than an antenna array on 14,000 square miles of land, which is actually about the size of New York City, plus another New York City, and Tokyo. So congrats, China. I'd send you a good job on the big antenna ELF text, but it would take 2 hours. And why would I waste 2 hours on that when I could get the best shave of my life in way less time thanks to this video's sponsor, Henson Shaving. The fine folk at Henson, after years of making aerospace parts for the likes of the ISS and Mars rover, have focused their engineering skills on making the perfect razor, and the last one you'll ever need to buy. It's durable, supports the blade all the way through, which most razors on the market don't, and is gentle on even the most sensitive skin. Seriously, every manual razor I ever tried irritated my skin, until I tried Henson's. And the best part is, you don't have to replace it. You can use one Henson razor for decades, and the only part you'll ever have to replace is the blade itself, which costs just a few cents. So while one of these bad boys is a bit of an investment up front, it starts saving you money pretty quickly. So if you want a better shave, and to stop having to replace that dinky thing from the grocery store every few weeks, head to hensonshaving.com/HAI and enter HAI at checkout to get 100 free blades with your purchase. And make sure both the razor and the blades are in the cart to get the deal.